Welcome back, and let's start with the newspapers this morning. The Business Finder says banks write off 631.8 million cedis due to economic slowdown, high operational cost. That's on the front page of the Business Finder. Again, it says challenging times for businesses. President Mahama is reported to have said that. The Daily Graphic says Amidu Woyome to slug it out during oral examination, but Woyome says he's been persecuted by Supreme Court. And then PNC launches 55-page manifesto. Dr. Mahama with a document raised in the air. And then we have dollars. Banks move to dampen speculations. The Ghanaian Times says US-UK caution Ghanaians. NDC replies. Photographs of the chairman of the party and the British High Commissioner to Ghana there. And then Amidu wins. Woyome alleges persecution and a fake national security operative nabbed. The Pokwasi area has some good news because government has secured $83 million for the interchange. The Today newspaper says Amidu examines Woyome on November 24. And again, Mahama spends $448 million on shoddy contract. Indum is urging, sell my message, Indum urges. The BNFT says banks steal telecos for deposits, and the Daily Heritage NPP blast Mahama says is a beneficiary of corrupt deals. Daily Statesman government pays $500 million without contract, and NPP charges Ghanaians to demand accountability. The Daily Express says told to take delivery of 1 million barrels of crude from the 10 fields. These are stories on the front pages of the newspapers. I'll take a quick break, and then when I come back, I'll tell you who the guests are. And of course, yesterday the president took his turn at the GBC encounters there. We'll listen to a couple of the things he said, and then we'll begin our conversation with that. But let's take a quick break. When I come back, I'll tell you who my guests are, and then we'll start the conversation.
In the period that I've been president, being a mere mortal, may have made mistakes, but I believe that in every mistake I've made, I've done it out of good faith to serve my nation. And every decision I've taken has been in the national interest. We were faced with three main challenges, I would say. I'll categorize them. The first was stabilizing an economy that was running a deficit of almost 12%. Resolving a power crisis that was crippling the economy and slowing growth. And the third was restoring social and economic infrastructure that was in a state of disrepair. I believe that we've achieved success in many of the things that we set to do. We've managed to stabilize the economy fairly. We're currently seeing macro indicators that are looking quite good and pointing in the right direction, and stabilize the power situation as of now. And we also have invested massively in restoring the social and economic infrastructure. The critical challenge that faces every leader in the world today is the issue of creating jobs for young people. I believe that we have the most credible program for job creation going forward. The first has been to create an enabling environment for the economy to grow. And that is why we've concentrated on stabilizing the economy. When the private sector has a stable macro environment and the economy is predictable, then it creates a conducive environment for the private sector to grow. Because in any economy, the private sector is the largest employer, not government. But the next challenge we face as a nation is rejigging our education system so that it is in sync with what the business and job market is looking for. And so that has been the challenge I face, how to rejig our academic curriculum to be able to produce the graduates that business and industry is looking for. And that is why we're doing the things we're doing. We're converting the polytechnics into technical universities. There's a huge army of young people who finish primary school and sometimes drop out. Not too many of them, because now there's no exam, and so you go straight into a school. JHS, some drop out, some continue into SHS. And these are people who need hands-on skills to be able to enter the world of work. So electricians, plumbers, and so many other things. And so we're doing skills development for that category of people. There are challenges that we have faced together as a people, and I've called on Ghanaians to make sacrifices. We've sacrificed together. The heavy lifting has been done. Over these 4 years, we've done the heavy lifting. And I believe that in my second term, there's not much heavy lifting to be done because we've done the structural reforms that were needed to make the economy come back onto the path of growth. I believe that I've served with dedication. It's been tough going forward, but we have been through this together. And I believe that we are on the cusp of brighter days ahead. The general consensus is that from 2017, Ghana is going to see quite accelerated growth. And if you look in our manifesto, with some of
All right, President Mahama there with some participants at the presidential encounters last night. We'll take a look at that and other stories on the front pages of the newspapers. My guest this morning to my extreme right is the director, the Institute of Industrial Research of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Dr. Francis Ejenimbuati. Doc, good morning. Once again, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And then to my immediate right is a member of the NDC's legal team and also a member of the communications team of the party, Mr. Abraham Amidu. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And great to have you in our studios. Then to my left is Dr. Edward Kopon. He is the Chief Executive of HR Perspective. Doc, good morning to you. I hope you're doing great.
Very well.
And then to my extreme left is a member of parliament for the Dom Kwabenya constituency, Ajwa Safu. Good morning. And I hope you're doing well too.
Very well, thank
Welcome
you.
once again to our studios.
Thank you for having me.
Grateful. All right. Now, let's look at some of the stories and start with what the president told those who watched on the TV screens and those who were in the studios of GBC yesterday. And he addressed the gathering there and told a lot about the story of the 4 years in office and why he should be given another 4 years. Dr. Kopon, let me start with you. Now, President Mahama said yesterday that he thinks that the challenges with the economy, the challenges with the energy situations have been dealt with, and that he thinks that we have done all the lifting of the heavy metals. A time now for us to relax and see growth. Is that what you see?
Well, let me start off by saying that he's been honest and humble enough to admit that mistakes have been committed over the period, and that he's a mere mortal, so he was not supposed to score excellent in his rating. However, he has done quite a lot, and he highlighted those areas in terms of power generation and power stabilization, in terms of social infrastructure, in terms of converting polytechnics into technical universities with a view to churning out more hands-on people who would then be attracted into the private sector, and therefore by that process be creating jobs.
Right.
I'm into HR, so anytime jobs are mentioned, I get excited. And so any attempt at creating avenues for job creation gladdens my heart. This morning I was listening to one of your sister stations, and it's been said that each year, for instance, we churn out about 7,000 graduates who go through the National Service Scheme. And at the end of the National Service Scheme, only 10% get jobs, meaning that 90% are unemployed. And so if he's making an effort to create an avenue for people to get jobs, it gladdens my heart, and I think every Ghanaian will welcome that. He says heavy lifting. That's true. He's done a lot of infrastructure in terms of roads, in terms of schools, in terms of hospitals. And so he thinks, the plane has taken off, they have hit the cruising height, and so the subsequent 4 years he'll be able to do so much. Well, theoretically that's interesting to listen to. But then he was speaking as if before he came into the position of the President of the Republic, nothing has been done. That I find difficult. There have been previous governments. They continued, or they started with certain projects, and then he took over from there, and he's taking it to another level. We must be honest enough to admit these things, rather than to speak as if when he came, it was a tabula rasa situation, there was nothing there at all, and he has now put in place. Otherwise, people watching Ghana from outside will say that. So for the so many years before he came into power, after independence, nothing was done in terms of infrastructure, nothing was done in terms of setting up the state for further growth. So for me, he gave it a bit of a political twist, and I thought, being the first gentleman of the land, he should have been very honest and, with himself and with the nation. Having said so, I think in terms of form, he's a PR person. And so it was beautiful. I mean, the whole thing was well organized, and I was happy
to see. I'm grateful, Dr. Koppimo. Dr. Jenny Boatin, let me come to you. Let's stay on the issue of jobs, because the president said some efforts are being done. But then he also raised the concerns that some job openings are not being filled because the right skills are not being gotten. So, for instance, when he talked about the oil and gas sector, where a company was looking for about 600 Ghanaians to employ, and yet could only get about 60 of them, and so had to pick people with basic knowledge in welding to train them. And so he says the focus is now to look at technical and vocational education in order to get people the required skills to be able to fill these vacancies. Technical and vocational education, is it indeed what we need to get our teeming youth on the ground, the jobs that they need so much?
All right, thank you, Bright, and good morning to your viewers. I think he hit the, how do we say, the nail right when it comes to what we need in creating jobs. That was trying to get people to be very, very technical. But let me begin by saying that majority of what we have in the country is knowledge, but we do not have the know-how. We are only going to get the know-how if we are able to improve on our educational system. So I was very, very impressed when he made mention of the fact that it is linked to the curriculum. The curricula in our universities, I'm coming from the universities, I was the dean for some years, and I believe the curriculum in the university is just something I cannot call it on this show. I think it is just not good enough. And the conversion of polytechnics to technical universities, for example, in theory will help a lot. But then we will normally make a lot of noise about this, but the right equipment, the kind of belief that we have in education in our part of the world is quite difficult to understand. We believe that education and training is about structures. So if you go to universities, you find wonderful structures, but sometimes they are not even buying simple softwares and laboratory equipment to train the people. And this is where the link is. We need to create a link between academia and the industry. We've talked about this for so many years, but we always talk about the fact that, oh, we need the technical people, but we are not doing enough to make that happen. Let me give you a good example of what, I don't want to talk about Michael, it's a public organization, so you know, CSIR, for example, is doing wonderfully well in this regard because they've spotted this gap and have come up with their own university at the postgraduate level to train people so that they will have hands-on. It's not about the classroom theory and the rest. And I must congratulate those who came up with that architecture. So education, curriculum, and the technical ability of our people is near zero, I must say. On the scale of 0 to 5, it is not an issue of creating things like is it youth employment and the rest. I don't.
The youth enterprise support.
Yes,
the youth
these things are helpful.
Agency
Governments will come and go, create a lot of them. They may help temporary, but the actual effort that should be directed should be in the direction of training people who are technical. How many can the government employ? The government is so limited in the number of people that it can employ. They can only rely on the private sector to actually employ a lot of people. Very basic things. Look at the oil and gas industry. We have sent people out to go and train. They come up with knowledge, and they don't have the know-how. So we need to think about creating what I will call a super lab somewhere that we should be able to train technical people. Conversion is a good idea. Conversion from polytechnic to technical university is a good idea. But I must say that it is not just rhetoric. It is about providing the technical universities, as they are called now, with the requisite facilities, such as lab facilities, but not just buildings.
I'm grateful. Mr. Maliba, let's stay on the issue of the jobs, because the president yesterday touched on efforts at creating sustainable jobs. Some of the jobs are not sustainable, so that's the argument that his opponents have said, that if you pick up somebody into the models under the Youth Employment Agency, the person goes there for 2 years and is out, and he or she is unable to stay on. Sustainable jobs. Is the president able to say that he has done enough as far as sustainable jobs are concerned?
Let me start by saying good morning to your viewers and listeners alike. This audio visual, isn't it?
It is.
The president yesterday took the opportunity to tell the people of this country what he has done so far. That is not to say that other governments didn't do anything, but he was trying to just indicate what he has done, and in the next 4 years, what he will be doing to this country. He indicated that when he took over, he was faced with 3 major challenges. The macroeconomic situation, and particularly the deficit. He talked about power crisis, and he talked about the deficit in our social and economic infrastructure. Now, he goes further to indicate that we've stabilized the power crisis, we've ensured that we are now in stability. He talks about massive investment in the social and economic infrastructure, and he talks about the deficit, which has virtually come to, we are now talking about 5% or 6% of deficit, and it's still coming down. So, if all these things are gotten right, industry, private sector will respond. And that's why he indicated that with a stable macroeconomic indicator, you'll find the private sector also responding to those indicators, and that is where the jobs will begin to come. Because when the private sector is able to expand, then you have people getting jobs to do. As he rightly indicated, government alone cannot absorb the teeming unemployed youth. So if you're talking about sustainable jobs, it is where government provides an enabling environment which allows the private sector to take advantage of the situation and create jobs, and these jobs, I dare say, will become permanent.
Can we say we have that enabling environment now?
Yes, that's why he indicated that we have the deficit come down, we have the power crisis. You know how the private sector were complaining about power crisis, how it affected their profits, and some were even saying that they have started relocating. And yesterday I heard a good news from the country manager of Stanbic Bank say that no, these private sector players are not relocating to Ivory Coast as it was claimed, but rather they are expanding into Ivory Coast. And so when you have these indicators, the social infrastructure, and you see, if your roads are not good, no matter what the private sector does, there's going to be a challenge in terms of even how to get into the rural areas and bring in foodstuffs, which may even be processed. So roads is one of our trump cards. The issue of providing the infrastructure needs, which would make this country go forward and leapfrog, is also being provided. So the macroeconomic stability, yes. The solution to the power crisis, yes. The social and economic infrastructure, yes. These are the things that would put the situation at its proper place so that you have the private sector responding. And I am quite sure of the statement made by the president that in 2017, this economy will blossom. Don't forget that even some pools that are not favorable to the NDC, and I'm talking about EIU, the Economic Intelligence Unit, indicated that we're going to lose, yet Ghana was going to do better in 2017. So even the pools that are not in our favor are even predicting that we are going to do better. IMF has also predicted 7%, 8% growth, and then the World Bank has also predicted. So there are good times ahead of us due to the fact that, as the president said, we have done the heavy lifting. We've done the fundamentals that requires that this nation would leapfrog. And so I am confident.
Let me come in here. Your opponents have said that the president, since he took office, has promised every year that the next year will be a better one. And yet, we have gone back to square one. So, can we take this time, can we take him serious?
The president indicated that we need to build the foundations. We need to get the foundations right. Without the foundations gotten right, there's no way that we'll leapfrog. When he says these things, that the next year will be better, is precisely because he knows that he has put in place some mechanisms in terms of trying to arrest the power crisis. And over the years, we have been able to add on to our energy needs. You know that we now have around 800 megawatts of power. We are even going to surplus. If care is not taken, we will even be able to, we will not be able to consume what we produce. And so we need to look for new markets. We need to even export some of our energy needs that we have, the power that we have. The point is that if you say that the president has been promising, but it has not been happening, this is precisely because you find that anytime we are about to leapfrog, there are challenges, new challenges that confront us. But you are aware that these three indicators have stayed stable for quite some time now. These three indicators, which is the deficit, has come down sufficiently. You talk about the power crisis, and then you talk about social and economic infrastructure. This is what is needed to leapfrog. In the past, you fix one side and another side comes in, which pulls back the successes that you are chalking. But with these three indicators looking positive, we can now say that we can see the way forward. And that is why the president was so emphatic about 2017.
Okay. And before I go to address Safo, then you talk about the private sector that you said should see be part of the whole program of bringing prosperity. But then this same private sector is complaining about the indicators you spoke about. Interest rates are high, the cost of electricity, and the fact that taxes are high. The manufacturing sector isn't getting that support. They are still complaining, despite the fact that the president says that they are indeed what we need to rely on to expand the economy.
If you ask any industry player, he will tell you that he prefers paying for the current rates than not having electricity at all. They will tell you. They will tell you that what they are looking out for is stability in the power situation. The crisis has hit them so hard, and that they will need stability. Don't forget that we have moved away from hydro into thermal, and this in itself means that we have to pay a little more than hydro. Our generation mix has moved tremendously, significantly from hydro, which was cheaper, to thermal. And so with this increases in tariff, it's as a result of the movement from hydro to thermal. industry players would tell you that they would at any time and on any day prefer the lights to be on for them to work than to say that there's no lights at all. Because if there's no lights, then they fold up and they are not able to work. And so we are in a situation where, yes, we are all called upon to pay some amount of money to pay for the electricity because the generation mix has changed. And that is the situation where we find ourselves.
I'm grateful. I'll come back to you. Adwa, let me quickly start you on this one. So the president touches on the fact that the deficit that occurred in 2012 when his party took power has gone down. The economy, he says, is stable now. One key thing he spoke about, the energy challenge that brought the economy on its knees, is now dealt with. And so with these indicators, he suggests that 2017 looks good. What do you think?
Thank you, and I want to say good morning to your lovely viewers, especially my constituents, Domi Kwabenya. Good morning. My brother, I watched the president yesterday night, and for a minute I was wondering if he actually remembers when NDC took power from the NPP. And where he is right now, and why he's projecting 2017. My brother, the NDC, led by Professor Mills, took this country up for governance in the year 2008. Right. And so you cannot start, and he was the vice president. So you cannot start assessing your successes and project a win in 2017 from 2012. For me, it is just a non-starter, because as the vice president of this country, you were part of the administration of your party, and it was not for any reason that you were chosen as vice president. You were a heavyweight in your party, and for that matter, they thought that you could bring to bear some of your ideas on governance and on bringing the nation on its feet. That is why you were given that nod. So that is one.
You should start assessing from 2008.
And that is how Ghanaians are assessing the NDC, and not for him when he took up the presidency, when our President Mills, we lost him, and may his soul rest in peace. So if he starts by assessing himself for 2012, then it is defeatist in his state. It is just to say that then Professor Mills didn't do anything, and your party did not perform. And I think that wherever Professor Mills is right now would not be happy about how the president was assessing his government, of which he led. So please, when we are speaking, let's be honest with our people, and let's start from where it started.
Right.
Again, the president, for a minute when I was watching him, I was wondering whether he's now sharing the ideology of the NPP, which is the capitalist and not a social democrat, when he talks about the private sector being the engine of growth of the economy. And this is what we have been saying from time immemorial. And they have always been, you know, discouraging and saying all sorts of things about it, that we are thinking that private sector. Of course. So for me, for once, I was wondering if he was center right or center left, because this is one of the key things. And when President J. Akufo was in power, it was a thing that was on the lips of every Ghanaian.
You don't think
that
the
private sector is the engine of growth? Fine. Now he's sharing in that idea. We welcome him. But if you're saying the private sector is an engine of growth for the economy, then you ask yourself, what are the policies that this government has put in place to ensure that they are enabling environment for industries to thrive, for private sector to thrive, for interest rates given to businessmen and businesswomen to encourage them to produce and to employ? He's linking employment and growth to it, and that has been the position of the NPP. And so when we were in power, we made sure that there were we created an enabling environment for the private sector. Because if you give them the enabling environment, investors will even come in and will stay. But if you are giving higher interest rate, and that has been the worry of many Ghanaians and industries and banks, that as we go to even borrow to expand our industries in order to create jobs, in order to also help the economy boost, the interest, we are giving loans at an interest rate that at the end of the day, you'll be running at losses rather than profits. So I don't see where the president is coming from when it comes to giving an enabling environment. Again, they always tease us about, oh, you were chasing hairdressers with loans and all that. My brother, because these small and medium scale enterprises also have a role to play in boosting the economy. So if they are giving loans at a very low rate, they will also expand, they will employ more people, and that is how you ensure growth.
So the interest rate is a worry.
It's a worry, my brother. And the second one is that taxes. When we're talking about enabling environment for the private sector to grow, you also talk about taxes. My brother, this is a government that has taxed Ghanaians to the core. Everything is being taxed. Now we're talking about, for example, if you talk about capital gains, when we were in power, it was at 10%. Now it's been increased to 25% taxes. Again, when you come to energy levy, they have introduced an energy levy to 10%. In our time, there was nothing like energy levy. And that's why you have all these prices of electricity and generation going up. Again, VAT on electricity is now 17.5%. VAT on financial services is now 17.5%. Even now, real estate, when the government is talking about affordable housing and all that, real estate revenues are now being taxed at about 17.5%. So if you are taxing to the extent that you are even taxing on condoms, then how do you expect industries and private sector to grow? Because it is not as if, one, you are giving them the enabling environment anyway. Again, you are not giving them the power supply that they need to thrive. So they are actually producing or sustaining these industries at a very high cost. And that again, then you slash on them again higher taxes.
The energy levies that you spoke about, is government not justified by saying that, look, the energy sector is so much indebted that the only way to keep it floating is to put on these taxes so that we can use it to offset debt and make sure that we have power all the time?
My brother, we were in Parliament when President Mills came, the president currently, President Mahama came, and all the time they were talking about people who their predecessors have been managing the power crisis and they are coming to fix it. Fine. If you're fixing and you're introducing taxes on the energy, it tells you, you don't need to be an economist. It will tell you that the amount to be paid by every Ghanaian will definitely going to shoot up. My brother, even on ambulances and bicycles, now there are taxes. People who bring in machinery to produce, to set up industries in this country, machinery, go to the Tema port and then Takoradi port and ask them how much import duties they are paying. And if you want to encourage them, why do you slash them with all these things? And apart from even paying the import taxes, you get to the gates, and then there are some people there who are calling themselves national security and all that. And before your container even leaves the yard, they also make you pay something. So how? So the importer or the industry that is bringing in all these things, if he's paying all these things, eventually the price on the actual product, the final product, is going to go up. So my brother, what I'm saying is that the president keeps saying, oh, we are building a foundation. He said it last time in the State of the Nation. We are building a foundation, and we're still building a foundation. That is to say that he's telling us that successive governments didn't do anything. And that is wrong. If he believes that governance is a process, and at a point you leave and someone will bring in something, we're talking about Kwame Nkrumah circle and blah, 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 interchange, Kaswa circle. If NPP hadn't constructed the road, would you be able to build an overpass on it? And President Kufuor was at a program in my constituency last Sunday, and he said these things. He said, oh, if you are saying you've done infrastructural development, fine. But if somebody hadn't started, when he came, some had done some roads, he expanded it. And that is why now you've been able, and we know that the Circle Road to Ofanko up to Kumasi, he started it. And now you have been able to build an overpass on it. Are you saying that the person who built that road hadn't built a foundation?
I think the president alluded to that when he inaugurated the interchange and spoke about.
No, but yesterday, we are speaking to what he said yesterday. And a lot of people were listening to him yesterday. So to say that, oh, we are still building the foundation, I was faced with challenge. My brother, if you look at our borrowings, our external debts from 1957 to 2008, it was 9.5 billion Ghana cedis. The whole from independence till when we left power, our external borrowings, our external debts was 9.5 million. From 2009 to 2015, 7 years of NDC alone is 105 billion Ghana cedis. So what are you telling Ghana? We sit in parliament and every day, every now and then, they are bringing loans for approval. The most ridiculous one was recently before we rose from parliament about the Commander Sugar Factory. When they were bringing in another loan.
Why ridiculous? It's supposed
my
to
brother,
that
they were bringing in a loan
to support the factory with the sugar cane.
We thought that it should have preceded the opening of or the commissioning of the factory.
The plantation should have been there before the factory.
Because they're coming in for money for growing sugar cane and irrigation and all that. And for us, any reasonable person or farmer who hasn't even gone to school will tell you that before you even set up a factory, you must know that your natural or raw materials are intact. You don't put up the factory, then realize that indeed you don't have the enough raw materials to start, and then you commission, and for close to 6 months, the thing is sitting there not working. It doesn't just make sense. So these are some of the things that Ghanaians will be looking at and Ghanaians will be expecting. That is why we in the MPP, we have said that we will be very tax friendly. We will make sure that we turn Ghana into a production economy rather than a taxation economy. Because for us, if you expand the tax net and every Ghanaian is paying very little, and the environment is friendly, and everybody, production is booming, you end up earning more. And this is a basic tax rule. You end up getting more. Rather than the few that are in the tax bracket, you keep increasing and you kill jobs. So in the MPP, we have said in our manifesto that when we come, all of these taxes that has been increased, we will slash them and make sure that it is friendly and convenient for businesses to grow. And that is why we have said that the private sector is the engine of growth. And if the president has now realized and is saying the same thing, we salute him for that.
I'm grateful. She's a member of parliament for the Don Kwabena constituency, Adwoa Safo. Dr. Kwapon, so it's the key thing from the conversation so far is that, well, we might have dealt with some of the challenges, but there is still more to be dealt with in order to have that ground that we need to build on.
Right. My brother Maliba said, what businessmen are interested in is stability, microeconomic stability, stability in power generation. I agree with that. But at what cost? If you keep increasing the cost of electricity to get to a point where it will not be profitable for businessmen to run businesses, because that will constitute a major component of their cost structure. And so for me, I will not agree with my brother here that, oh, let us get power, let us stabilize power production and all will be well. Because
so we need to look at the cost too.
That's right. The number one motive of any businessman is profit. And where power is eating into their profits, I don't think they will continue to be in business. And that's how come he says that, look, some of them are not relocating to Cote d'Ivoire, but rather expanding to Cote d'Ivoire. What is the attraction there? If they are doing well and very well here, why would they want to go to Cote d'Ivoire?
When they want to expand,
it means cost of production. It's going up. You can expand.
Yes.
So I agree with you can expand. The charity begins at home. If you're already here and the conditions are so favorable, why wouldn't you want to continue to take advantage of the enabling environment?
The expansion should have been in Ghana, not
right.
outside.
But if you study the statistics, companies are rather, closing down or reducing the rate at which they are operating. Again, this morning, I'm not sure whether this morning or yesterday, somebody said that provisioning by the banks for bad loans is about 605 million Ghana cedis. It means that businessmen are facing a lot of difficulties as a result of which they are unable to pay back their loans, and their bankers looking at this think that, well, let us write off some of the loans to ease the burden on them. So yes, it's good to talk about microeconomic
Is a
stability.
finder reporting that 631 million cedis banks had to write the debts off because the economy is slow and they are operating at a very high cost.
That's right. So when we are debating, we have to be very broad-minded in the way we look at issues. If you just look at a few economic indicators and jump to the conclusion that, oh, we are doing well, we have stabilized the economy, next year is going to be rapid expansion and growth, we should be careful about that. I don't share in that because there are so many issues to think about.
All right. Dr. Yenimboatin, so we should be careful in pronouncements, particularly about the fact that we might see the light in 2017?
That's very true. And let me begin by saying that I think this has gone on for far too long. It's not about MPP, it's not about NDC, it's about all Ghanaian politicians. If Ghanaian politicians had anything, the electorate had anything to say, the moment they listen to any politician, the next word will be Yatiabre. I think we have listened to this for far too long. Next year will be good. Oh, the economy is going to take off in the next 2 years. We wait for the 2-3 years and it doesn't take off. It's still on the ground. I'm confident about what I'm saying because if we should analyze the promises that politicians have made up until now, then Ghana should be a first-class country. They all made promises. And we are talking about building foundations. Which of the governments have built a foundation in Ghana? In my opinion, the only government that tried building foundation was Kwame Nkrumah's government. The rest is always been ad hoc. Let me give an example of the power situation that we're talking about. By the way, let me correct the value that Mr. Amariba talked about, which is 800 megawatts. We don't have 800, we have in excess of 3,000 megawatts.
Okay, we have more than 800? Is that what you're saying?
No, yes, we have got, in terms of the capacity we have in excess of 3,000 megawatts. But again, if you pick just energy sector, which all the political parties have been making noise on, the solution has been so ad hoc. How can you bring in a power on a generator on water and call it emergency power and the contract is 10 years? Sometimes it baffles my mind. How can we be thinking about powering our own economy when we rely on Nigeria for gas? When we rely on South Africa or the southern part of Africa for coal? When we rely on rainfall, which God, I know we all pray, but I'm not sure God has promised us continuous rainfall all the time for us to get enough to run the Ekosombo. But what we are sure of getting all the time is solar. So until any government thinks about investing in solar to create or to build independent power stations in districts, I am afraid it's just like you have a stomach ache and you have a plaster on it. We are not going to solve that problem because as we speak, it doesn't matter whether MPP or NDC or PNC or PPP, whoever comes to power, we're going to go back to doom so. Take it from me. It is not solved. It is not fixed in any way. We're definitely going to go back. And there's been so many promises. And this is actually making the voters quite frustrated. The promises are just too much. and it becomes excuses and comparison as soon as they win power. So what Mr. Amariba and Mrs. Safo are talking about is their excuse.
Miss Safo.
Miss Safo. Oh, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, I know now. Forgive me. Okay. I'm not a politician, so I don't
still
follow.
Miss. Yes.
She's still Miss. Can I advertise for her?
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm still not Miss, but I've decided to use my father.
Okay.
All right. Thank
So
you
when
very
you
much for
address
the
me
correction.
Safo, then it's my father. So
All right.
it's my
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is that if we are looking for power, we make all the promises. But when they come to power, the first thing they do, whether it's out of naivety or intentional deceit, they will begin with excuses. And then the next thing is, okay, then let's compare ourselves to the previous administration. And I don't blame them, I blame Ghanaians. We've not been discernible enough to come up with a national policy that we can measure these two giants, political giants in Ghana. Because they are the referees and the players at the same time. They come up with their own policy, NDC's policy, MPP's policy, PPP's policy, and then they measure themselves against their own policy. Instead of having a national policy that we will look at how NDC is able to measure to that policy and how MPP is able to measure to it, they have their own policy, so they are the referees now, and they are playing to that policy. So, as electorate, we are unable to measure them truly. How do we measure MPP and NDC? How do we even measure what President Mahama is talking about as his successors that have built this number of roads? Who is actually doing the measurement? And for you, the journalist, it's always about comparison. There is no journalist who is doing a detailed documentary on road construction, for example, and detailing what Mahama did or what Mahama has been doing and what President Kufuor did. Look, I mean, it's becoming a joke. It's all coming to the fact that I think our politicians do not really look at the maths. And as a country, I'll go back to the curriculum. We've not looked at the analytical part of our education. Ability to analyze and say that, yes, he did this, it was 10% of the total, he came, he improved on it, it is 5%. We are always talking very comparatively. There's been significant, unprecedented improvement. These political talks are not going to help us. Go back to China and compare. They have done very well because majority of their leaders have been looking at values and quantities. They matter a lot.
I'm grateful. Let's wrap up on this. Mr. Amaliba, so your opponent says that this is not an environment that you can claim to be good for businesses to thrive, taxes and all that. This is their concern.
Let me make some corrections. The mantra that the private sector is the engine of growth was not coined by the MPP. Indeed, this mantra, those who are old would agree that this mantra started with the Rawlings administration, even in the PNDC days.
Kwame Nkrumah.
Okay, so yes. Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes, Kwame
okay,
Nkrumah.
so well, so it is clear you are buttressing my point. You are even saying.
But you are social democrats.
So what I'm saying is that no. There's a difference between partnering the private sector to deliver social goods.
All right.
Right. Sorry. Let me cut you short. Actually, the two parties you can't distinguish between them.
Because these ideologies seem to
I just want to debunk the assertion that this mantra started with the MPP. That's not true. Indeed, he has even said we should go back to Nkrumah. It is not also true that condoms are being taxed in this country.
Well, there were some taxes on condoms.
I'm saying that it is not true.
So it's not true.
If you want to speak the truth, say that there was an attempt, but it was taken off.
Okay.
But when you speak this way, as we sit here, there are taxes on condoms. That is providing half truths. or virtually not speaking the truth. So as we speak, there is no
tax
on condoms.
But you tried.
Now, with Dumso, I want to assure you, we will not go back to Dumso. Indeed, that amounts to doom saying. If you say that, we'll go back. This government has put in place all the mechanisms, all the power badges. In fact, the second, what is it? The
emergency power badge.
Emergency power badge is coming.
And the worry is that the car power,
the second car power,
10 years.
The second car power.
The worry is that the emergency and 10 years.
It doesn't matter what Ghanaians want.
That's a concern.
I'm saying that what Ghanaians want is when they get to the house and they switch on the lights on their wall, and lights comes.
No matter the cost.
Now I'm saying that we are putting in place all the mechanisms. Car power, the second one, is on its way to Ghana and will boost our energy needs. So, to you, we are not going back to Dumso. Dumso will not be our lot.
I think I have
now with the human, he talks about there's no way to measure. There is. In fact, some of these things have been measured. When you look at the human index development, Ghana is classified as being ahead. We've reduced child mortality, infant mortality has reduced, maternal mortality has been reduced. All these things have been provided with figures, and there are indications. You look at even water coverage, supply of water to the rural and the urban centers. Under the MPP, they took it from 50% to 52%.
This is figures from where?
Statistical Service.
Statistical Service.
50 to 52%. When we came, we have water coverage in Ghana now is at 80%, if not more, in both rural and urban centers. So there are figures to show. We are living longer now in Ghana. We are living longer. We are living to 63 years. In the other parts of the West African sub-region, some are they are just living 53 years. We are living 10 years more. That is an indication that this country is doing well. We are living longer. The human index development, we are living longer. Life expectancy, you can Google, you can go and check the facts. So, some of these things that we are talking about can be measured, and they are being measured. Indeed, even if you cannot measure them, you don't see the figures, you know that we have eradicated the Kufuor gallons. When people used to carry these yellow gallons.
Every part of the country?
We have eliminated them. They are not in existence. You used to see yellow gallons all over when you were driving. Where are they? That's an indicator. That's the human index development we are talking about. So, for me, you can not have the opposition party actually agreeing with the ruling party, because then what will be the need for them to be in politics? But the people of this country, the people who are the beneficiaries, people who otherwise did not see schools in their communities and now seeing the schools, the e-blocks, will look at that and say that, no, let me vote for this man, because all throughout my years, I've not seen any school here, but they've brought a school there. People who otherwise did not have roads leading to their communities and now have asphalt road will also look at that. So these are all the indicators. For me, these are the things that would determine who wins December 7th, and not these indicators and figures. The figures, who knows about figures? My grandmother in the village, what does she know about figures? What she wants is, can she go to the grinding mill to grind her millet now or corn, because we've extended electricity to that place? That is what she will look at, and not 10%, 50% figures.
I'm grateful. I will wrap up for me on this one. The president address encounter with at the GBC. Then let's move on. So, well, the sharp disagreements you can see, but how do we move this country on? Let's wrap up on this.
Thank you. And just to correct my learned colleague here, I never said that the mantra, private sector is the engine of growth, we introduced it. I was talking on political ideologies.
Right.
And if he has read his own political ideology, which is the social democratic, he would understand that if we're talking about private sector partnering government to ensure growth, to to ensure development, then it is for the center-right and not the center-left. So that is the point I was saying. And he was even going to throw dust in our eyes that it started with President Jerry John Rawlings. And for him, I think that we also owe the duty to our viewers to also be a point on when we seek to do a correction. Get your facts right before you seek to do anything. Again, I was also happy when he admitted that the taxes on condoms, it had gone through a cabinet, it had gone through all the ranks and file, it came to Parliament. And then if you overtax, it will get to a point that the people will resist. So it was as a result of the resistance of Ghanaians that they pulled back. It wasn't as if it wasn't part of government policy.
All right.
It was part of government policy to tax condoms. Okay. Why would you tax condoms when we are all talking about HIV and how we are preventing HIV? And if somebody has to protect himself from all STDs and all these things, and you're taxing the person, what is the incentive for the person to go? And he's talking about life expectancy. You can link this one to it. If people are being taxed on on condoms, and they are getting HIV and all that, and they can't afford these antiretroviral drugs, and they are dying, you come and sit here and saying life expectancy is showing that President Mahama is
please, I think the figures are from
where do you want to go?
I think that
come and sit here. Is this your
I think
is this your bedroom?
I think that Ghanaians deserve better, and Ghanaians are not blind. Ghanaians have seen. They have compared 8 years rule of the NDC. They have seen 8 years rule of the NPP under President J. Kufuor. And all the social intervention schemes and policies that we witness in this country today was introduced by President J. Kufuor. The National Health Insurance Scheme, this school feeding program, LEAP. Now NDC is boasting about LEAP. Who introduced LEAP? And so when my brother says that he can only trace foundations being built from Kwame Nkrumah, of course, we also built some of these foundations. When we introduced the National Health Insurance Scheme, our NDC counterparts in Parliament said we couldn't do it, and they actually opposed it. But now we were able to bring the National Health Insurance Scheme, and now it is even diminishing. People are holding cards, they go and try to access the scheme, and they are being told that it is not covered. So if you are holding the card and it's not covered, what is the essence of it? Again, we were the ones who brought the Metro Mass. When they tried to do Metro Mass, they tried to do public transport, and we all know what happened in this country. Just the branding of the buses. Over millions of Ghana cedis went into one person's pocket. And as we speak now, we haven't seen any leadership role to say that we are taking the money back. These are my brother, you would agree with me. Corruption, he's a lawyer as well.
Right.
Corrupt practices is defined in our criminal act.
Right.
And when people commit corruption, which is a criminal act, you tell them go and pay the money and you think that is it. Crimes are to be prosecuted, and the chief prosecutor of crimes in this country is the Attorney General. What steps were taken? Just go and bring. Then everybody can steal and you'll be told to bring it back. What are we doing to ensure that the laws that are kept on the shelf are actually being implemented? So my brother, what we're saying is that President Mahama, we don't think that for 8 years you are still building foundation. I do not share in that dream. And when it comes to energy, he has said time and time again in Parliament and in other fora that he will not manage. But if you bring car power, which is a temporary solution to it, are you also not managing the power situation? You are not fixing it.
So for you, he
is not fixing it. Just as he came to Parliament and said, I'll fix it. Predecessors have managed it. Then fix it. This is what Ghanaians give you a mandate for 4 years, and you have to account to the people. So you cannot come and sit on national television and say, my way of accounting to you is that I've built foundation, give me another node. in 2017 you see growth. This is just uncalled for.
I am grateful. I just have to stay member of parliament for the dumb coming concern. Now let's jump to the.
She came from a house. Was there lights on there?
No, I'm sure there was no light. I'm sure Adwa has a generator set. I'm sure, even if there was light on.
I know. Yeah.
You can keep on dreaming.
I'll give all of them solar.
All right. Okay.
Keep on dreaming.
But let's touch this story. A lot of the papers have it. Amidu grills Woyome, Amidu wins, Woyome alleges persecution, and several others. The key thing is that the Supreme Court has agreed that Mr. Amidu orally examines Mr. Woyome in court, November 24. But the worry of Mr. Woyome is that he is being persecuted by the Supreme Court instead of the court prosecuting the case. Now, according to him, he had wanted to pay 4 million cedis and spread the rest of the amount over a period of time, but the court rejected his idea. And that's what he thinks is persecution. He thinks that when, after Mr. Amidu has examined him, then what? Dr. Jenny Boateng, is he right in saying that the court is persecuting him?
I think this Adjoa and Abraham will be able to actually
tell us exactly.
Tell us the details of it, because I'm not
the legality,
the legality of it. But I will speak from common sense point of view. As a citizen of Ghana, whoever takes or steals anything from us or unlawfully gets something from us, I will wish that we get it back. That is number one. If you look at Woyome's case, I think it's gone on for far too long. It should have been possibly finished now. And I also don't understand some of the legal implications of having to ask him to pay. If it was wrong, then I don't know if that was the only way. But Mahama Amidu, to a lot of people, has done well in his submission so far. But to some people also, they think that he was also part of the problem in the first place. So I can't say specific, because I really don't know the legality, and I don't want to end up in the parliament or at the Apex court having to come and answer some charges. So I think I will leave this one to Abraham and Adjoa to actually answer them.
To deal with it.
To deal with
right.
it, yes.
And Dr. Kopon, let me quickly come back to before I go to Madam Adjoa Safo and then Mr. Abraham Maliba. The key thing will be on November 24, when Mr. Amidu will face Mr. Woyome in court. Now, then some have argued that it will put some finality to this, because Mr. Amidu will then be able to point it out that Woyome has a property here or there that can be sold to recover the money, or he has any other means of paying that money instead of what he says he has agreed to go by. So we should wait for November 24?
Well, we all submit to the rule of law in this country. And therefore, to the extent that the Supreme Court has given the opportunity to Martin Amidu to examine right. Mr. Woyome, it's in order. Legally speaking, it's in order. Because the law or the justices of the court have spoken, and we must all respect their decision. So for me, it's in order. Now, before they will take such a decision, they will have done a lot of due diligence, weighing all the sides. And I think the Woyome case has generated sufficient interest and controversy in this country that it requires to be dealt with finally. And so I'm all for it. Now, you said at the end of it that your submission,
that Mr. Amidu will be able to point it out, yes, that Mr. Woyome can pay the money, or he has some property that can be used to pay the money.
Well, the thing is that in court, when you are a judgment debtor, you can always appeal to the judge to negotiate a settlement with the judgment creditor. And I think that is what
Mr. Woyome said he has done, right?
And that is done at the discretion of the judge, looking at all the circumstances. and from the point of view of the reasonable person. So that is also in order. I mean, it's justified in a way when it looks as if he's not being allowed to pay the money in installments or by the whichever means he can.
They have agreed on.
But my biggest problem is that this saga has been going on for more than 4 years. Now, if you take a loan from a bank, you repay the loan with interest. So if you wrongfully take money from the state and you are paying back, it shouldn't just be the principal. It's the principal plus interest at the prevailing rates. So, I believe the judges will go into all this. Because as I sit here, I feel cheated that somebody can have access to state funds, hold on to it for 4 years, and pay back the principal without any interest. That would be insulting, the intelligence of the people of Ghana. Now, this is a landmark case. Indeed, I'm so excited. By this ruling or decision, it means that any member of this nation who feels that a state property or a state asset or state money is being misused can go to court and assume the capacity as a citizen of this country, because sovereignty resides in the people of this country, to go to court and assume that busybody posture and retrieve the money for us. So I congratulate Martin Amidu for what he has done. I'm really proud of him as a citizen of Ghana.
Citizen vigilante.
I'm grateful. Mr. Maliba, is Woyome being persecuted?
That is for his lawyers to tell, but I will not be able to say whether he's being persecuted or not. But when you look at the ruling given by Justice Niyabua, it was only a single judge.
A single judge, right.
You find a lot of laws turned upside down. When you look at Article 88, it provides that it is the Attorney General who can institute criminal and civil actions on behalf of the state. Now, by this order, are we saying that we have taken a duty that belongs to the Attorney General and given it to a private citizen to do?
The ruling says he is doing that in the interest of the state, not for his own benefit.
But the Constitution determines who can do that. The Constitution did not say anybody can do that. So are we here being told that parts of the Attorney General's work can be taken from her, in this case she's a lady, and given to a private citizen to do? Don't forget that this is an order from there was an order from the Supreme Court directing the Attorney General to retrieve the monies. So now there are two orders. One was given to the Attorney General. Another one has been given to Martin Amidu to do the cross-examination. Because
are they the same? Retrieve money, cross-examine?
They are all geared towards retrieving the money. And don't forget that the Attorney General had already filed an application to examine Woyome, but withdrew it with liberty to reapply. So that's the difficulty there. The second difficulty is, don't forget that the Attorney General has not withdrawn the matter completely. The Attorney General said that I will have discussions. If the discussions don't yield the desired results, I'll come back
to court.
We have been told that
the discussion is on how the money is to be paid.
I'll come back to court. Let's assume that today or tomorrow, the Attorney General goes back to court and say, the discussion I have with Woyome, I'm not satisfied. I'm coming back. I'm reapplying to cross-examine. Now, what will happen?
There'll be two cross-examinations. That's what you're suggesting.
I'm just teasing out all the challenges. So now what will happen? Will the Supreme Court say, no, Attorney General, go back. We've already given the work to Martin Amidu. This is another issue. Now, when you look at our laws, or the 46 thereabout of the CI, it provides clearly that the one who can cross-examine a judgment debtor is the judgment creditor. You get the point? Now, is the question to ask, is Martin Amidu the judgment creditor? Is he the one who will benefit when the monies are paid? Is the state. And who represents the state? Attorney General.
Attorney General.
I heard in the ruling given by Justice Niyobua that the order to retrieve the money has been some years back, and the Attorney General is doing little or nothing at all to retrieve it. Hence, the order to give it to Martin Amidu to do the examination. This cannot be entirely true. The Attorney General has garnished the bank accounts of Woyome. Some monies were retrieved there, they are not enough. The Attorney General has attached the properties of Woyome. UT Bank and other banks have come out to interplead. The Attorney General has taken steps. It's not like when the order was given, the Attorney General went to bed. Now, a court order is a serious matter. So you know that the Supreme Court has ordered the Attorney General to retrieve the money. What happens if you disobey a court order? So from the analysis I've made, the Supreme Court is of the view that the Attorney General has disobeyed, has failed, right, isn't it?
Or has delayed. Let's put it that
and that way. Is to say that they have not carried through their order.
The orders of the court.
Yes. Article 2 of the Constitution provides that failure, and I'm reading 2:4, failure to obey or carry out the terms of an order or direction made or given under clause 2 of this article constitutes a high crime under this Constitution and shall, in the case of the President or the Vice President, constitute a ground for removal from office under this Constitution. So if you disobey a court order, let's assume, so from the analysis, the AG has disobeyed. What you cite her for is for high crime. You don't take a work.
Does the Constitution cover the AG too?
Yes, anybody. Failure to obey, anybody.
Okay.
Anybody. And a person here, any person. Attorney General is a person.
Right.
You are a person, any person. So, any person here means even the Attorney General. So, the solution has been provided that if you feel, as in the case of Enimebo, who says that the Attorney General has failed or has reneged in his responsibility, what you do is to cite her for high crime. But you don't take the work that she's mandated to do under the Constitution and give it to a private citizen to do. And for me, I think that these are the issues that we have to raise and talk about. I am of the view that the Woyome's lawyers know what to do. It is possible to also go to court and say that I want 3 judges to be empaneled to look at this matter. The Constitution provides that. Where a single judge sits and you are dissatisfied, you can go and ask for 3 judges to sit on the matter because you are dissatisfied.
Disagree with
so, but they know what to do. I'm not
say.
the one to show them what to do.
All right, some legal education. So your take on this one, and I think he's made a lot of suggestions that some of the ruling were laws turned upside down.
Mr. Maliba, which year were you called to the bar?
Doesn't matter.
No, I want to ask.
We are not here to know.
Okay, I strongly believe that he's a junior, honestly.
Doesn't matter.
Because I was called to the bar in 2004.
All right.
Doesn't
So
matter.
this is about my 15th year at the bar.
Okay.
And this is a Supreme Court decision. If
So it
you
cannot be
can
questioned.
have an opinion
Yes, that's
about
my
the
opinion. Yes,
decision,
that's it.
Right.
but to categorically say that the law has been turned upside down, I think he should lower his tone a bit.
That's my view.
That's an advice to him.
That's my view.
Secondly, I think that it is not for any reason that Professor Mills or the NDC appointed Mr. Amidu as an Attorney General. Just as I'm senior to Amaliba, he's senior to me by many years. And I have, when he was Attorney General at one bar conference, he was the one who delivered.
I'm not your junior. Your junior is somebody who is in your chambers. Who carries your books? If you were going to call and I was carrying my books, your books following you.
He understands. He's my junior at the bar. When we say junior at the bar,
you are my learned colleague.
If you were called a year behind me or 2 years behind me, you are my junior.
I am a learned friend. I am your learned friend. I'm not a junior. Your junior is one who is in your chambers. If you have somebody in your chambers, that
is a loose interpretation to it. And the same way he gave a loose interpretation to the Constitution. My brother, before I move on, I think that I was making a point about when he addressed the bar conference as the Attorney General. That was my first encounter with him. And I think that he is a very learned, sharp up here, and we shouldn't underestimate what he's able to do when it comes to the legal practice. And he was appointed by his own government. If you can't just be Attorney General if you're just any lawyer. No, you have to be assessed, and people must say that indeed your practice at the bar and your legal dealings are such that you can be the chief prosecutor for the state. So let's not underplay that. He went on to read Article 88, which gives the Attorney General the right to be the chief prosecutor and to prosecute on behalf of the state. And he went on to read Article 2.4. But Article 2.4, and it's a basic rule in interpretation. And I still remember my interpretation class like yesterday, that when you take a legal document and you are interpreting it, you ought to interpret it as a whole. You can't just take it out of context and interpret. What does Article 2 talk about? Article 2 says the Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land, and any other law found to be inconsistent with the provision of this Constitution, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. Then when you come to one of Article 2, which he read the 4. So it is full, one precedes the other. It is following. If you look at 2.1, sorry, a person who alleges, it talks about a person.
Right.
And we must remember that the Constitution of this land puts the sovereignty of this state or land in the hands of Ghanaians, not in the hands of anybody. So if you are a citizen of this land, you have that sovereignty to protest on grounds that is provided
so
here.
The same Constitution that gives that power to the AG give that same power to the citizen?
No, the AG is to be a chief prosecutor for government.
Right.
It doesn't enshrine the sovereignty in the AG.
In the AG.
No,
okay. All right.
It enshrines the sovereignty in the people of Ghana. So any person, and 1B, let me start with 1A, a person who alleges that an enactment or anything contained or done under the authority of that or any other enactment, and my emphasis is on 2, a person who alleges that any act or omission of any person is inconsistent with or in contravention of the provision of this Constitution may bring an action in the Supreme Court for declaration to that effect. My brother, it talks about any person.
Any person.
So Mr. Amidu qualifies to be any person within the purview of this provision. And he's saying that any act or omission, so on the part of the Attorney General, he is claiming that 88 says you are the chief prosecutor. You ought to perform a duty or a function, and you omit to do so. Any citizen of this country under this Article 2(1)(b) qualifies to bring a suit before the Supreme Court, which is the highest law, highest court of the land, to say that that omission or that act, I want to question it. That is what it says. And then the 4. And it talks about.
I want to ask you before you go to the 4. So, isn't the Constitution also giving the Supreme Court the power to punish the person who fails to do an order or carry out an order by the court?
No, that is why I was coming to the 2. A Supreme Court for the purposes of the declaration. So you are bringing the action for the court to pronounce on it, to declare on it, give directions or directives or orders on it. And so if the Supreme Court shall, for the purpose of declaration under clause 1 of this article, make such orders and give such directions as may consider appropriate for giving effect or enabling effect to be given to the declaration so made. My brother, what the Supreme Court, presided over by Justice Enimyeboah, sought to do was to declare, make a concrete declaration based on the application that was brought. They failed to say that there were certain parts of his affidavit that the court quashed. Why are we not celebrating that? It is not that the entirety of Mr. Amidu's action was taken and embraced by the Supreme Court. There were portions that they thought shouldn't be part of the process, and the court accordingly said so. So to sit here and say that it is turned upside down, and again, he made reference to CI 47, which is the civil procedure rules for this country. He knows very well the ambit and the extent to which and the scope of the CI 47. When you go to the Supreme Court has its own rules. So you cannot sit here and say CI 47,
no parallel provision
CI 74 applies in the Supreme Court.
CI 16 has no parallel it has no provision for this.
I find it very difficult.
Saying that CI 16.
What I am saying is
CI 16. Tell me CI 16.
Let me
tell me CI 16.
If you can allow me to quickly, because we ran.
CI 16 hasn't got. So they borrow from CI.
Should the Supreme Court have acted because the AG has delayed or failed to carry out an order?
Come again?
Should the Supreme Court has acted because the AG has delayed or failed to carry out an order?
That is why the framers of the Constitution, the spirit and letter of the Constitution, which is the soul of Ghanaians, which is enshrined, the power is enshrined in every Ghanaian. My brother, you can sit here one day and say that I don't, there's something that ought to be done that is not done, and I want to go to the Supreme Court. So the Constitution is upholding, or the judge was upholding the Constitution, and was actually given the proper interpretation, the purposive interpretation to the Constitution, the purpose for which it was to be the purpose for which it was enacted, which is the soul and the spirit and the letter, which is to give every Ghanaian that right. So you cannot say that by the mere order or directive or declaration by the court to say that Mr. Amidu, you were supposed, the Attorney General has withdrawn on the matter and has said that, oh, it will come again. Whether it will come or not, it doesn't preclude the right enshrined in Article 2. It can run concurrently. So to say that once the Attorney General is on the matter and has withdrawn, and for us we stand down, there was no proceeding. She has withdrawn from the matter, saying that, okay, a directive has been given, we are going to see to it that he pays. And Mr. Woyome in his press conference is saying that he was even prepared to pay 8 million or whatever. But that is not any process, and the court deals with processes, not by word of mouth or what you sit on radio and say. There is no process before the Supreme Court. The AG has withdrawn it, and we remember when it started. We've had instances where AGs have said that there's no case to answer, they've withdrawn. So the court has a record or a precedent of successive withdrawals. And if a vigilante, a citizen vigilante like Mr. Amidu, whom I salute a lot, very sharp with the law up here, and it's not precluded by the law, Article 2 gives him that right. Are you trying to say that that same constitution that the court is interpreting is out of context? I don't believe so.
Let's wrap up.
When we are quoting legal positions, we should quote it in context. And you cannot just quote Article 2(4) and try to explain it out of the whole ambit of the law.
Okay. Let me get. Okay, you come in before Dr. Jenny Boateng will come in.
Nobody is quibbling about Martin Amidu's capacity to go to the Supreme Court. Article 2(1) gives him the capacity. And that is why when he went to the Supreme Court claiming that there's no prior parliamentary approval for the Waterville and what, which has led to Woyome getting some of the money, was unconstitutional. Nobody said he had no capacity. So on that score, we are not saying that Amidu cannot go to court on that. We are contesting, and I am contesting the order given to him to do the cross-examination. And I have teased out certain issues. What if tomorrow? What if tomorrow Attorney General goes to court and say, I have come back And it is not true what she's saying, that the Attorney General has withdrawn completely. Attorney General has withdrawn, and she knows that process is known in law. It's not alien in law. The process where you withdraw with liberty to reapply is a well-known legal process. It's known. You can always do that.
Okay.
So for me, I do not understand why she says that she has withdrawn. The AG did not withdraw. She can always go back. So these are the issues. Nobody says that Woyome cannot go to court, but can the functions of the Attorney General be given to
Mr. Mahama Amidu?
These are the
my brother, unless he wants to say that when Mr. Woyome talks about he's being persecuted and all, unless he wants us to invent a new legal principle to say that cross-examination means a final order by the court.
Okay.
Cross-examination is part of the process.
You understand why I decided to excuse myself when it comes to this, because when it comes to especially lawyers and politicians, for which the two belong, they are never
of which one is senior?
They are never going to agree on anything. If they do agree now, then they can't be politicians, because they have to have different views in order that they can argue and stay and have jobs. If they agree now, they can't be lawyers. They can't have jobs, because if you are always going to take it as it is, then there is no job for any lawyer. The law profession, I must say, in Ghana or in the world, in my opinion, has not been very, very grateful to. I know they do great things, very, very excellent work, but then when it comes to the choice of terminologies and words, I could sit here for them to talk for the whole day, and possibly as an engineer, I might not appreciate some of these. So I think it is high time, if I had the choice, I would say that let us rewrite some of the terminologies in the constitution and in the law books, so that the ordinary people can understand. But coming back to this issue, I think what the ordinary Ghanaian is looking for is not about these arguments. It's not about the processes. It's about whether or not the 52.1 and added to Mr. Kwapon's case, whether there is going to be an interest 51.2 plus Mr. Kwapon's interest rate is we have the money at the bank and it's come back to to the people of Ghana. That is all what we are interested in. So common sense wise, we just want our money. Law, when it is Mr. Amariba, or we don't want your processes. Go ahead and get us our money. And that is all.
Any word before we wrap up?
Well, the bottom line is we want our money back.
Okay.
And the bottom line is that there is a certain amount of legality in all this, and the two must run concurrently. But the ordinary man out there wants the money retrieved, and by whatever means we retrieve the money, they are not interested. It's the money coming back into the coffers of the country.
But you know why they cannot cite the Attorney General for high crime? Because the evidence show that she's obeying and
she's making some efforts to.
So they cannot.
That's what you're saying.
They can't. They can't cite it.
My brother,
because there's evidence to show that she's
and that
doing
is
it.
also why we have said in our manifesto, this is the kind of difficulty that we have been having, not now
in managing state funds.
No, especially when there's no independent or autonomous body that is in charge of prosecution. You know, the Minister for Justice and then the Attorney General's role is merged. So, and the Attorney General is an appointee of government. So we have said in our manifesto that to promote transparency and make sure that there is that independence and that courage to prosecute on matters concerning the state when it comes to corrupt practices, we are going to set up the special office of the special prosecutor, and that is going to be an independent body, not an appointee of government, so that they can. And it exists in other jurisdictions, and it is working. So that's why we're telling Ghanaians, give us the nod. We would make sure that this problem is solved.
It's resolved.
When Nanado was Attorney General, why didn't he create his office? Nanado was Attorney General. Why didn't he create the
Director of Public Prosecutions?
I'm saying that he was Attorney General. Nanado, why didn't he create that office? Why didn't he create that office?
I'm grateful, gentlemen,
why
and
didn't
the
you
lady
suggest
for
in cabinet?
your time this morning. And Dr. Francis Ejenimbuate is the Director, Institute of Industrial Research. And Abraham Maliba is a member of the NDC legal team. Dr. Edward Kwapom is the Chief Executive of HR Perspective. And Adwa Safo is a Member of Parliament for the Dom Kwabinya constituency. Gentlemen and ladies, I'm grateful for your time this morning. Have a great Thursday morning.